Hi class, this is Jamie Jameson Tankrell. I'm here to present how to improve culture through HRIS from Brandman University for HRCU 652. I decided to present Grandview Global Financial Services, Inc. They employ 20,000 people for 45 separate geographical locations on 9 different languages. They offer exceptional customer service. That's kind of their philosophy, is the customers come first. And they focus on providing wealth management services through investment, insurance, banking, real estate, financial planning, and other related services. Their quality of employees is very important, as their number one is the customers. So they offer exceptional quality of employees, and the employees are the highest caliber because they need to take care of the customers. So every employee is expected to provide the flawless service to the customer. And regardless of the national origin, location, whatnot, employees are also expected to speak English. Now, this is a little important as the geographical locations change. But business is actually conducted in 9 separate languages throughout the 45 locations. There are some HR complications. Performance management and the reward systems are not standardized whatsoever, and therefore it becomes a little difficult for human resources to monitor these programs. Part of the underlying complication is that each location has their own performance management and reward system, and it's all based upon their cultural norms and standards, completely understandable in each geographical location. So in addition to those separate performance management systems, the materials submitted through Grandview's central headquarters is in different formats. Microsoft Word, Microsoft Excel. It's also in separate languages often. So this becomes pretty frustrating for the HR, and it exaggerates the process, and it just becomes kind of a convoluted mess. So another problem is the compensation. Now, each compensation is particular to that geographical locations, their norms, their employment law, their expectations, but this has caused morale to decrease, and perceptions are convoluted. One location's paid better than the other, and this becomes pretty hard for employees to get over, and it's difficult to provide great service when you're not really feeling very well appreciated. So they also have an HRIS system, but it only reaches about 60% of the employees, and this is a complete waste of business. As a product that only even meets 70% of the needs is less desirable than a system that meets 98%. So you need to have that additional functionality to encourage growth, and you need to have a current HRIS that is actively functioning within the capacity that it needs to be developed. So part of the problems and opportunities that Grandview have is to create a more unified and inclusive culture. And that's what we're going to talk about later, and how to do that and implement that. Because right now the problem is that there's no standardization for PM and total rewards. And HR has this great opportunity to develop a company and a company culture without eliminating particular cultures. So it will become inclusive. It can become part of a global standpoint, a little bit more dynamic. One thing that we need to talk about, because this is going to be important for the global team to realize, is that there are 2 different types of knowledge. So you have your shared knowledge, and shared knowledge is really important to each team. And each location has their own explicit knowledge, and that's kind of important, because explicit knowledge is sort of what is common in the whole. So you have, your technical language, your publications, your instructions, that's all explicit knowledge. Then you got your TAC knowledge. So this is all gained from experience, and it can be difficult to pass on unless you have like a mentor training development program. So this is kind of something that HR and the team is going to have to address, and how they can create explicit and TAC knowledge and kind of mold those in together and improve the PM and reward system. And that's all going to be through this knowledge sharing that employees have with leadership and managers. It'd be pretty more understandable as the process continues. So my suggestion for Grandview was a complete overhaul of the performance management system and the total reward system. And this is going to start by building a virtual team. Now it's really important when you build a virtual team that they're going to be members from each geographical location, and they need to be high performers. They need to be dedicated to this process. So a sense of urgency has been created, and they are completely okay with this, and they want to see this change initiated. They're ready to do research, and therefore they're going to have to learn the cultural norms. They're going to need to know the voice of the customer. They're going to have to know employment regulations and laws of certain geographical locations. And something that we need to keep in mind is that, like it says here, is the most effective tool is the global business team. So a cross-border team of individuals from different nationalities, that's really going to help build each perspective. And it's really great for a multinational global corporation to have such a strong team in place. Part of the virtual team success is that they're going to be dedicated to analyzing the current PM system and total rewards. They're not going to be able to change anything if they can't get an understanding of what is currently in place and what's not working. So they're also going to have to research legal regulations and norms for each location and gather that voice of the customer. It's going to be kind of like through a job analysis, job description sort of needs analysis, interviewing, surveys, whatnot. Because they need to have also a better understanding of disparities between pay, so this can be analyzed and maybe rectified from different locations. This is understanding these things. It's going to be extremely important to start initiating that process. Part of their success is going to be that they are going to conduct a needs analysis through interviewing and surveying. So what employees want from their PM process? What do they want to see? What do they want to be evaluated on? And the goal, ideally, is to reach 100% of the employees through surveys, town meetings, interviews, to get that healthy voice and to get a well-rounded voice. And also the team's going to build a SWOT analysis, because this is going to explain to them, what's currently working right now, what is not, and how they can find new opportunities to fit within the business, the strategy of the business. Part of what also you're going to bring to the leadership is a return on investment. So you've got your program benefits minus your program costs divided by your program costs. It's really going to give the team and leadership kind of like a forecast of how this time and money that's going to be spent on overhauling this complete process and program they'll actually see an investment, they'll see a return. They're going to see some value in overhauling this performance management system. In addition to overhauling the performance management system, there really does need to be an HRIS in place that will touch upon the performance management and the total rewards. So I propose that the team start an RFP as well, so they can solicit bids and proposals from vendors, because that's what's going to be important, is they're going to need to build this HRIS and understand how to use it. So they're going to have to tailor their HRIS, and it needs to reach 90%, 98% or more of employees to be successfully implemented. For that to happen, the virtual team is going to need complete autonomy and research and development into the HRIS. And they're really going to need to work closely with the IT to understand their system limitations, their system requirements, how this can successfully be implemented. So part of what it'll include is the PM and total rewards. And employees are going to be able to have a central port where they can view their performance management and compensation, and they can ask questions, they can address managers, they're going to be able to see where they're at and where they need to go. And it's going to also help with the submission to a standardization to submit these forms to the central office, because the format and the language are going to be standardized, even though there are going to be certain parts that are not standardized, where Grandview is going to have benchmarks that they expect their employees to make, but also there are going to be individualized benchmarks within that location that kind of measure performance within that culture that can translate into Grandview's overall philosophy. So what needs to be expected with this overhaul is that there are going to be an improved PM. So there's going to be a standardized process to submit the final reviews to the central office. But each location is going to hold true to their cultural norms and values, which is very important. with the exception of the standardized benchmarks and performance that Grandview needs to have to make sure that their customers are their focus. So standardizing compensation that is acceptable to each location. And part of that is going to be encouraging lateral transfers, which will be encouraged as career development. And this is going to build cultural intelligence. So these employees are actually going to have the opportunity to laterally transfer to different geographical locations. It's going to add to their career development, create cultural intelligence, and this is just going to have an overall better effect on the PM and compensation program. And it's going to be in part for lateral transfers to a pay for performance, which is also going to help. In order for successful implementation, the team is going to have accountability and follow through. And I propose that the team come after 60 days, they have a comprehensive analysis. In this way, it'll tell them what are the glitches of the system, what do they need to fix, what employees like, what do employees not like, what can be changed. These are kind of important aspects in order to streamline and implement this new HRIS. After that 60 days, the team revisits it at the 120-day, the 240, and the 300-day review. And this is going to help overall, kind of expand the metrics. They're going to be able to see how well this works. They're going to be able to understand what's working and what can they take out and what's business waste. So one thing that is going to be completely huge for Grandview's restructuring of PM is that it's building the competence of employees. And competence standards come from turning future customer expectations into present employee requirements. And this is right at the core of Grandview's philosophy for taking care of their employees and their customers. These are part of my basis for my research. So these are my references. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me at the email provided. I look forward to questions as this presentation was a little succinct, and I want to thank you very much for your time, and I hope that you have an excellent day. Thank you.